What is up, guys? Welcome back to the pod. We are here today to break down AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door pay-per-view that aired Sunday, June 26, 2022. And I would say overall, it was a really, really fucking great show. I don't think there was any question about what type of quality the show itself was going to produce. If you listened to the prediction show that I did, which a lot of you did check out, and I appreciate that, and thank you for returning here again. Long time no talk, right? But like I said, if you heard that show, then you know a lot of my gripes and complaints going into it was just purely based on the build of the show itself. And that was pretty much it. And just the fact that me being a newer New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, I wanted to kind of build my knowledge and kind of learn who is who I should choose, who I should cheer for rather, who I should boo, who the big stars are, and things like that. I mean, of course, a few of them are pretty fucking obvious, like Okada, to say the very least, and of course Tanahashi, but I was looking to just kind of learn more about specific talent that they had and what talent that they were showcasing and be like, yo, these are our 5-10 ace players, no pun intended to Tanahashi, but these are our go-to guys. If we're presenting a Forbidden Door pay-per-view and presenting our best, then this is what we have. And in that regard, my main, like I said, complaints were coming from, just because I felt like a lot of the stories were lacking, to be completely transparent. I did address the situations that were beyond their control, right, with the injuries, things like that, to a lot of the big stars. CM Punk, Bryan Danielson being two of the bigger ones, of course. But I even think, and not to kind of backtrack here even more, but I think with what they had, and now that we have seen the full picture of it, I think maybe in totality, I can give them like a 75% in regards to the initiation of when we knew there was going to be a Forbidden Door and when the hype officially started on TV until last night. Probably maybe an 80 or 85% because last night was just really good. But I think the story is obviously where they were lacking the most, in my opinion. And I think that if they just put a little bit more into it, and granted, look, maybe it's obvious, or maybe it should be obvious that maybe we should give them the benefit of the doubt rather they had a whole bunch of stories lined out on paper, and then when Punk went down, Danielson went down, it threw a major wrench into things. So, again, I do just harp back to that to kind of give them, fair share and, like I said, benefit of the doubt in a lot of things. But that being said, too, with what cards they had left in their hand, I feel like they could have done a little bit more storyline-wise. But getting all that bullshit out of the way, I think the pay-per-view that we received Sunday night was just incredible. I think the in-ring work was top-notch, to say the very minimal. I think that a lot of people their immediate reactions on Twitter were that it was one of the, or if not the best pay-per-view of 2022, one of the best pay-per-views that AEW has put on in-ring work-wise. So very, very high praise there, especially because in my opinion, maybe I'm a little biased here, but I thought Revolution this year was a very, very good show, and I thought that was probably up there for maybe top 5 of their best show, or best pay-per-views rather, in their longevity of their little history so far as being a company. But yeah, I don't know. I think I luckily enough, Bleacher Report lets you go back and rewatch the show, so I'm gonna definitely rewatch it again today. Today being Monday, but I don't know. I think maybe you can call it one of their top 5. I'm not going to say it was their best pay-per-view ever. Again, maybe if I go back and rewatch it, I will have a different feeling. But the excitement was definitely there. And a lot of the pros and the positive points that I think are just so obvious that, and while they're obvious, I think they deserve credit for. The location, Chicago, United Center, just couldn't have asked for a better location and a better venue to start a debut pay-per-view like this. And especially one where even someone like me, I consider myself a hardcore wrestling fan, maybe, to a lot of extents, but I guess I'm more niche than a lot of your average wrestling, or not average wrestling fans, but a lot of your hardcore fans in that sense. I definitely need to branch out more. My early love for wrestling and the way I even got into the wrestling world was just through WWE. So for many, many years until I discovered wrestling magazines, once I made it to the store as I grew up, and we didn't have Wi-Fi where I was from, and where I was living, so it's not like I had access to, like, watch other videos and things like that, so and no excuse now, right? But just kind of giving a backstory on that, WWE was my life. And so for the longest time, like, I didn't even know New Japan was the thing until many years into my fandom as a wrestling fan, right? So I say that just because I was kind of going into the show, like I've mentioned, blind to a lot of aspects of New Japan, or very, very unfamiliar with a lot. But if besides the location with what they did, or with the choice rather of Chicago and the United Center, I think, man, I think, in my opinion, New Japan probably gained a lot of fans. At first I thought I was probably in the minority of people who were more familiar with the AEW side as opposed to the New Japan side. I kind of, and especially depending on the people that you follow on Twitter, right? You may have more of an influx of fans of fans who are as diehard AEW fans as they are New Japan wrestling fans, and vice versa, and they know just as much about New Japan as they do about AEW. And I'm not one of them yet, but that's my goal, and that's what I really am going to focus on, and kind of do more research on, and just enjoy more, because like I said, I don't know if it was just the excitement there, and shout out to everyone in Chicago who made it to the event last night, because, man, like, you guys really added to that show. I always say that fans really bring a lot to the show, and they really can make or break a show when nothing, no rocket science there, right? But I mean, especially with the pandemic, we realized how important fans are, but man, just Chicago, like, there's just something else about that Chicago crowd. So shout out to you guys, and shout out to the fans for really making that event what it should be, because I think if you would have done that show, I would say the majority of anywhere else in the United States, it would not have gotten the strong reaction that it did, especially for a lot of the New Japan Pro wrestlers that you just aren't as familiar with, right? So the fans really, really helped the show last night. So shout out to you guys out there if you're listening to this. You guys really added to the show, and you'll definitely see that when you go home and rewatch it. And I'm definitely, it's funny too, because even though the show just aired last night, I'm looking forward to going back and rewatching it today. And I actually almost forgot that Raw is tonight and John Cena's returning, so that kind of says a lot. But kind of getting all of that, like I said, bullshit out of the way, and just kind of the overall picture of the show itself. We'll get into the card here, but one last point that I kind of wanted to hit on too. I think it's pretty obvious and goes without saying probably at this point, but the show has been deemed a huge success so far in the immediate response, and there's rumors that going forward, if which they most likely are going to do another Forbidden Door, that there are talks about trying to incorporate Forbidden Door into one of the Wrestle Kingdom nights in Japan itself, which would be fucking insane. So we're still way, way early developments in that, and that's even a legit rumor, right? But just the thought of that would be just so dope, and it would just be so cool visually to see. So we'll obviously get more into that once we get closer, and if that kind of has any steam built into that. But man, that would just be really cool. So kind of moving on here and getting into the card itself. I was a little late to the buy-in, so I will not be able to run down the full buy-in card for you guys. I just caught literally the last match on the buy-in itself. I recently switched routers, so I had to reconfigure some shit, which I didn't realize until the last minute, so completely my fault there. No issues with Bleacher Report Live. And then shout out to them too. Before, I believe it was, I forget was it Double or Nothing? Maybe it was Double or Nothing. Whatever pay-per-view I had to order on Bleacher Report through last, it was just not as smooth and seamless as this one was. So whatever they did this time, they were prepared, and they knocked it out of the park. No streaming issues, no glitches, no nothing. So shout out to them as well. But the match on the buy-in card that, like I said, I did get to see, was the 8-man tag bout with Max Caster, the Gun Club, taking on Yuya Uemura, Alex Coughlin, the DKC, and Kevin Knight. Austin and Colton Gunn ended up running backstage to look for Danhausen because right before the match started, Danhausen had a random video message for the Ass Boys that appeared on the screen. And essentially, I don't know if it was like a new version of their theme or if it was just a song that was created for them, but it was essentially just taunting them. So they became distracted by that and ended up running backstage, and we pretty much didn't see them after that. So, it is what it is. I don't know. I don't really know where we're going with this whole Danhausen, Ass Boys things. It's just kind of weird at this point. I mean, I don't hate it. I'm just waiting to see like what this is leading to. And maybe I should just be sitting back and enjoying it, right? I don't know, but I'm not the. I don't know. I'm just gonna wait and I'm gonna wait before I pass any more judgment and wait to see how, like I said, it plays out. But for me, I am just a really big fan of Max Caster and Anthony Bowens. Of course, obviously, we know Anthony is injured right now, so it makes sense to pair off Max with someone else, and to pair him with a veteran in the ring like Billy Gunn, I think is a good choice. And obviously, Max is just gonna gain knowledge, and just it's gonna be nothing but beneficial for him being paired up with Billy Gunn, especially behind the scenes, probably more so than on camera at this point. Just because we haven't seen much from Billy Gunn in the ring, unless that changes going forward until Anthony returns. But for now, I think it's a good pairing until, like I said, Anthony Bowens comes back and they're able to officially go back to being the Acclaimed as just I was going to say solo act, but as a partnership. And it could be a fun feud, at least starting off for them, a quick little squash going off against the Ass Boys. We don't exactly know for sure how long Anthony Bowens is going to be out, but I mean, he's still in a wheelchair every week. His knee is pretty bandaged up and obviously in a brace as well, so it's probably not going to be anytime soon. So like I was referencing, at least having Max Caster with Billy Gunn on screen, and I'm sure behind the scenes he's picking his brain, and they're kind of under like the learning tree from Billy as well. So that's a good pairing, and nothing but good things, like I was mentioning, can come from it. So at least in my opinion. So I mean, yeah, it's nothing major here. I was surprised though, to get back to the match itself. I was surprised that they ended up just keeping it as pretty much a handicap match going forward, and not surprising though, that Caster and Billy Gunn ended up picking up the victory for their team, rather. There's really not much to this match. It kind of was what it was. They did allow the New Japan guys to get in some early advantage, pretty much taking advantage, no pun intended, of the 4-on-2 man-up that they had after, obviously, the Billy Gunn's kids left them and left their father to go backstage and chase Danhausen, which obviously it wasn't even like he was immediately right there. It's not like he was waiting right there in what gorilla position or anything like that. It was clear it was a tape, right? So it's like, why? I don't know. It's not even important to get into. Long story short, guys, Max Caster and Billy Gunn did end up picking up the victory here, and that led us to the actual card proper itself. I will say that I heard that Lance Archer's match was pretty solid, and that was a nice little kind of, I don't want to say warm up, but just kind of like keeping him fresh and in the ring wise, because he will be in the G1 card going forward representing AEW. So it was cool seeing him on at least the buy-in, since he wasn't on the actual card proper itself. But speaking of the card moving forward, I was correct in my opening match prediction from the prediction show, so I'll give myself a nice little pat on the back, but again, not rocket science, that Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, and Minoru Suzuki opened the match against Eddie Kingston, Wheeler Yuta, and Shota Umino. This match was pretty dope, I'm not gonna lie, and of course seeing Jericho and his team open the pay-per-view itself, having the fans sing along to Judas, and then having Minoru Suzuki come out after that with his team, respectfully, and coming out to his song and having the fans just sing along with that. It's just, again, Chicago, just the fucking, like, just ideal location, and just so well done. I mean, it probably, again, no real rocket science into that either itself. You know, it doesn't take anyone, if you've watched wrestling in Chicago and you know anything about AEW, it's pretty much a no-brainer to have this type of show in Chicago, especially the debut one. So, not really breaking any hot news there, but the match itself was pretty good. You know, it was pretty much what you would expect it. I think one of the fun moments was the standoff and the fight, rather, against or between Eddie Kingston and Suzuki. Just the chops itself, you know, if you're a fan of Suzuki, you know, that's obviously one of the things that he's known for, and dude is just insane when it comes to the chops. Like, I would love to see him versus Walter or Gunther, if you guys have been watching his latest name change in WWE land. But man, like, I would love to see a match between them guys and just see what type of hard-hitting shit that they could pull out. But getting back to this match here, like I mentioned in the prediction show, this was, in my opinion, just a way to kind of set up the blow off. Hopefully, is what it's going to be, a Blood and Guts this coming Wednesday, which we'll reference later on at the end of today's show with what happened in the main event as well. But they're really putting a lot into the Blood and Guts show this coming Wednesday. I don't know if it's a matter of just wanting a big rating to kind of bounce back from the kind of back and forth rating weeks that they've had here in the past month or so. But I mean, they have, and you know, to their credit as well, or you know, to kind of be transparent, they have been going up against the Stanley Cup Finals some weeks and things like that. So there have been other extenuating factors that have been going into it. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. But this match, it was, like I said, it actually ended with Chris Jericho hitting the Judas effect and getting the 1, 2, 3. This match was, like I said, really hard hitting, and there's a lot of action going on in it, and actually a lot of good storytelling as well. I was surprised we didn't get more of a standout, I don't want to say appearance, but maybe moment from Sammy Guevara, just with how he's been going through it and trying to hit that one move or hit that one moment. He's even actually, like, specifically stated as well that he wants to kind of have that show-stealing moment. And, I mean, unless I missed something, there wasn't really something that he even attempted, which is fine, and he doesn't need to, right? It was just the first time that was kind of obvious to me, just kind of thinking back on the recent matches that we've had with Sammy and what he's actually verbally stated in promos as well. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with the new version of his character that they're going with and kind of having him back off and be less flashy, which again, I'd be down for, you know, I'd be down for that, and it only makes sense. If you're a heel or a bad guy, you don't want to, you know, cave into the fans. So if that's the route that he's going, I totally agree and dig that. So that being said, again, Chris Jericho and his team officially did pick up the W and get the advantage going into Blood and Guts this Wednesday. After that match concluded, we pretty much immediately went to FTR. I'm sorry, I almost gave out the spoiler alert for the winner right there. But the tag team match with FTR, of course, being the Ring of Honor tag team champions, facing off against the United Empire, who are the IWGP tag team champions, and Roppongi Vice, who are just coming in there. And I had referenced in my prediction show that I wasn't really sure why Roppongi Vice were included in the tag team match. That's, you know, without just the obvious, right, with having them taking the pinfall loss. And I did mention that Rocky Romero had a big part in this whole Forbidden Door pay-per-view even being a thing. But I guess I kind of felt bad once I was watching the countdown show that they did on Friday night and kind of rewatching that Saturday, and then seeing just like how well the show went as well. I kind of felt bad, so I apologize, Rocky. It was never meant to have any disrespect or anything like that. I know you played a big part. Just storyline and match purpose wise is what I was referencing. I still don't feel like they were needed. You know, long story short, and apologies to the side, like I still don't feel like they were needed. Besides just being in there to take the loss, which is fine. You know, I guess it is what it is, but I don't know. I don't see what the big deal is in having, like, if you're gonna have your champions lose, you should be okay with having your champion lose. And if not, then maybe you shouldn't put them in that situation. And that's for any company, especially WWE for that matter. You know what I mean? But with that being said, there was a moment towards the beginning of the match where Dax, I believe it was, kind of sold this really bad injury. It appeared that he had a shoulder injury and went to the back to get checked out. So it was kind of scary there for a little bit. We didn't know if he was going to make his return, but he did end up making his triumphant return to come back out and save Cash and his team from the sure elimination. Not that this was an elimination, but of course just being down a man is not great, and especially when it's a 3-team tag team match and the stakes are this high. So the fans were super into FTR, I should mention too. Even back to the beginning when they made their entrance, the second their music hit, just stars. It's kind of crazy to see how quickly these guys have grown and just how big of a deal they've become, especially in tag team wrestling. Like, a lot of people don't give tag team wrestling the love that it deserves, and I don't really know why. I love a good tag team match. I mean, obviously, if I had a preference, it would probably be a singles match, but to me, it's just more so about the story, and it's not like, oh, I only like this specific type of match. Because, like I said, to me, it just depends on the story, right? And it doesn't matter if that story includes 2 people going one-on-one, or if it's 4 people, 2 teams going against each other, or if it's 3 people, or whatever, you know. The story makes the match to me, and that just kind of I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, and let me know if I'm just completely babbling and not making any sense at all here. It's been a long couple of days, but with that being said, we did get the triumphant victory of FTR getting the victory here and obtaining the IWGP tag team titles, and they now have 3 sets of tag team championships, guys. I think it's, in my prediction, I'm pretty certain I stated, I see the long-term story being them heading now to All Out, which I'm pretty certain is going to be in Chicago again, to face off against the Young Bucks and add the AEW tag team titles to their list. And they're kind of like our this year's 2022's belt collectors, right? Just kind of taking over Kenny Omega's role and taking it to the tag team division. And there's obviously no other team better and more suited for that role than FTR. But what I'm kind of interested in and excited to see is what this means for them in New Japan and how often they're going to be able to go to New Japan, if this is going to be just a short turnaround victory. My thought would be no, though, because with my prediction, if you're going to hold to that, and I don't see why you would even put the titles on them if you're not, they're going to hold them through at least September, which is All Out is scheduled to be, right, with Labor Day weekend and all that. So do they hold them through September and then go to Japan and defend the IWGP tag team titles? How long is New Japan going to be okay with not having their tag team champions over there and things like that? So I'm sure they've already gotten all that figured out before they've actually, booked the finish and went ahead with it, right? But that's just kind of me speculating as a fan and just kind of thinking outside of the box here. But long story short, this match was really fun again, and that's probably going to be the theme to this night and to this card. It was just a lot of fun, energetic matches, and I love that they went with FTR getting the victory here. Yeah, and I think I hope they actually put time and build into the story for them facing off against the Young Bucks. In a lot of ways, the story is already kind of told, and it is what it is, but I would just love to see more build to it, so that is kind of my long-ish term booking for at least the AEW tag team division for right now in the next 2, 3, 4 months. So the next match on the card after that we had is the finals for the All-Atlantic Championship tournament. We had Pac versus Miro versus Malachi Black versus Clark Connors. This match, it was good. It wasn't, to be frank with you guys, I was kind of expecting a little bit more, and I don't really know what I was expecting more of. But I think once it was kind of obvious that Miro wasn't going to be getting the victory here, as much as I didn't want him to win, and I even predicted that he wasn't going to win in the prediction show, I still feel like, I don't know, like my love for Miro is strange, right? Like, I want the best for him, and I didn't want him to win this title, no offense to the championship, but I still feel weird not seeing him win the title. So I hope that even as early and as soon as this Wednesday, that the focus is put back on Miro and going for the TNT title, which, as I say that, I highly doubt that is going to be the case, because that is kind of more towards, or leaning more towards, Wardlow right now. Let's say that 5 times fast. Wardlow and Scorpio Sky and things like that. So it's just a struggle, man. It's another downside to having so many great talent on your roster and so limited amount of time and titles. And again, I say that not because, or not with the intent to add titles. If you have heard my podcast, you know my rant on that. So I'm obviously not a fan for the more titles, the merrier. It's just, I don't know, like, I just love Mira, and I feel like you maybe even shouldn't have brought him back for this tournament yet if he's not really in a position to win and to have the focus on him and anything that he's doing. So unless he's kind of put into a substantial feud starting even this week or next week, even, I don't know, it might have been a waste to bring it back so soon. So getting that kind of little rant out of the way, I really like that they went with Pac here. Pac ended up picking up the victory. I think Clark Connors really had a showcasing night for himself. The crowd really gave him some good respect and some moments there, so it was really cool. It was just a good, fun, a good feeling moment and match for him. I'm sure it was obviously the biggest match of his career and probably one that he'll never forget. And it's fun to see good things happening for wrestlers like that, and especially nowadays, especially because look, to be frank, if this was WWE, they probably would have just made it a triple threat, and AEW could have made it a triple threat as well. And obviously, New Japan is they probably have more say than anyone. But I like that they went with Clark Connors, like I mentioned in the prediction show. I like that they didn't just make it a triple threat or just throw someone else in there with more notoriety or anything like that. I like that they gave this young guy a chance, and I think he really shined. You know, it wasn't anything remarkable and like, oh my god, you got to sign him immediately, but it was good, and it shows that this dude has a lot of promise to him, and he has a good upside, so I think it served its purpose, and I think it was a really good, solid match. And again, that being said, I like that they went and put it on Pac. If you're not going to put it on Malachi Black and have him put it over with the promo sense, then Pac is just as good. So I'm definitely here for that. And Pac, you know, Pac has been in AEW since the beginning, and it's good to see him finally win the big one here. So, look, even if we can say what we want about the title itself and talk as much shit about it as we want and how it doesn't make sense, but at the end of the day, as long as they take it seriously, which I'm sure they will in at least some respect, then I'm happy for Pac. So it is what it is, guys. After that, we had the Bullet Club versus the Dudes with Attitudes. And at the beginning, we had Darby Allin, of course, make his way for his team. And we were waiting for the arrival of Sting. And music hit, all that good stuff, no Sting. It's kind of surprising. Everyone was kind of like, you know, what the fuck, where's Sting? Next up, we had the Young Bucks music hit with their entrance. And they had their Bullet Club gear on, their jean jacket cutoffs, with no sleeves, with the patches for ROH, the Young Bucks. So it was definitely their throwback gear along with the black tights with the fringe at the bottom. So it was definitely a callback to the Bullet Club days and the Bullet Club gear. So that was pretty cool to see if you were a fan of them back in the day. But what was more surprising rather, was the entrance that Sting ended up making. The Young Bucks were standing at the top of the stage, doing their entrance, and then all of a sudden the lights went out. Lights came back, the lights went out. Then we saw a spotlight in the rafters, and then we saw what seemed to be a visual of Sting. I couldn't, to be honest with you, really make out what it was. I just assumed and knew it was supposed to be Sting. A few seconds later, the next thing we knew, it was shot back to the stage, and Sting was standing on top of the set that they had for the entrance and standing on the baby faces on top of their tunnel. The fans went nuts. Sting hit a crossbody onto the Young Bucks in the Bullet Club to make his entrance. That being said, Darby knew that they weren't going to stay down long, and Hikuleo it actually ended up just being a triple threat because one of the Dudes with Attitudes members ended up getting injured, so it ended up just being 3-on-3. So Hikuleo was outside, or accompanying them the ringside, so Darby made his way, charging from the ring to the stage to kind of take him out to make sure he didn't get the upper hand on Sting. They, of course, ended up making their way back to the ring and had the match proper in the ring itself. And this match was what it was. Again, like I mentioned in the prediction show, it was just kind of a way to get these guys on the card itself. I made a prediction, last-minute prediction on Twitter, rather, that I was hoping we would get Surfer Sting. I figured maybe a callback with the Dudes with Attitudes and just the time frame. I believe that was, 92? If I'm not mistaken, when Sting was in the Dudes with Attitudes. So I just figured, it would be a good time, or a throwback rather, but no go, and hopefully we do get that in the future. But I think I was wrong with my prediction here. I don't know if I chose. I should have written this down, right, with my predictions. But I was rather surprised with that the dudes with attitude got the victory here. Part of me was kind of thinking that the Young Bucks were going to pick up the victory, but it does make sense. And I think thinking back on it, I probably made the reasoning that the Young Bucks don't need the victory and that they are fine since they're the tag team champions. So that, as I say that a lot, that does sound like something I would say. So the dudes with attitudes did pick up the victory here, like I said. It was just a fun match, fun, high energy match. Of course, nothing short of what you would expect from a Young Bucks and especially Darby Allin match itself, rather. After that, we had the Soul Women's match on the card, which I was probably most surprised by the ending to this match more than anything else on the card. And that was, again, Thunder Rosa, your AEW Women's Champion, facing off against Toni Storm. The match itself was pretty good. It had a lot of good back and forth action. It felt like it was missing something, right? It felt like it was just missing that next gear. But there was nothing sloppy with it or anything off. It just felt like something was just slightly missing. So I don't really know what it was, or maybe it was just me, but I still really enjoyed the match. I feel like, again, the crowd really added to this match, even if it wasn't as much as other matches. But I'm just gonna get right straight to the conclusion here, and that was having Thunder Rosa retain. It wasn't even her signature move. It was Dustin Rhodes' signature suplexes. I forget exactly what he calls it. But it was a spinning suplex. Yeah, she hit that and she hit and got the 1-2-3 against Toni Storm. No outside interference, no nothing. No, just a clean victory, which I'm not mad at, and we all advocate more for. It was just really surprising to see, and I guess with someone maybe at the star power, or what we thought was going to be the star power of a Toni Storm. So to see her just kind of take the L here, unless she is injured or something to that effect, I don't know. It was just really surprising, and I had stated in the prediction show that maybe if they were going to continue and having Thunder Rosa win here, if they were going to continue with the rematch at All Out, that they would have possibly one of them turn heel, or just set up a way to have an easy way to prolong the next 6-8 weeks of story that we would have leading up to All Out. But yeah, it was so definitive, and I think that's what kind of took me off guard and what was most surprising than anything else. But yeah, so that being said, Thunder Rosa retained the AEW Women's Championship. I'm not really sure what this means for Toni Storm going forward. If she ventures over to Jade Cargill in the TBS Championship, which again, I don't really think so, because that seems to be what Athena is occupied with right now, and the whole baddie section and everything like that. So, and unless they have Toni Storm just snap and go crazy and have her turn heel on Thunder Rosa, and that's the way they get back to that, I don't know, but I'm just really kind of surprised, and I will be even more surprised if that's it for Toni Storm for right now. I would hate to see her kind of be like another Ruby Riott, come in with all this fanfare and all this momentum, and just have her championship match, lose, and then that's just kind of it. So just kind of really perplexed with that one, but not saying it was necessarily the wrong move. I'm just waiting to see, but I'm kind of nervous with that one. But guys, what I told you was going to be the sleeper on the card ended up being the sleeper on the card, and possibly one of the best matches on the card itself, which I know sounds crazy. That is Orange Cassidy versus your IWGP United States Champion Will Ospreay. And man, and again, as a newer fan, I forget sometimes how big Will Ospreay actually is. Dude is just stocky and just built, and not built in the sense that, oh, he's jacked and he's so muscular and all this shit. And he is, but he isn't, right? I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe him. You have to look at him and see. And I love his curly hair. I love his look. I love everything about him. So, he definitely gained more and more of my love and my fandom after last night's show. But this match was just really fucking fun, guys, and really kick-ass. And shout out to Ospreay for selling and playing into Orange Cassidy's, bullshit moves and his little not fake kicks, but like the light kicks that he does and things like that, and the hands in the pockets. And I love the way that he played into it, right? Like, he sold for it, and he obviously fed into the moves and played along with it, but it wasn't so obvious. It wasn't so disengaging to who he is as a character and to who he is as a wrestler. Like, he looks at it, he acknowledges it with either his facials, either verbally saying it or whatever, or just, but just smacking Cassidy in the face or some shit, that he thinks it's obnoxious and that take this shit seriously. And every time Orange would either reverse it or duck it or whatever. So it was just a really fun twist on the Orange Cassidy offense and the defense that's played against his offense. So I hope you guys saw this match. If not, I really hope you figure out a way to see this match, because it was great. And I would say easily a 4.5-star match. And I know that sounds crazy, maybe 4-star match. But man, it was just so good. And there were so many near falls at the end of the match itself where I'm not gonna lie, there were a couple moments where I was like, no fucking way, they're actually gonna put the U.S. title on on Cassidy, rather. Obviously they did it, and Will Ospreay did end up picking up the victory here and retaining his title, but this match was just fun. It was a really good match, and it was really fun, and I think it was everything that I personally was expecting it to be, and then some. After the match itself was over, the United Empire started beating down on Cassidy, which led to Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero coming out to make the save for Cassidy. And then after that led to, forgive me, Katsuri Shibata. And I am not familiar with him at all, guys. So I wish I could have been as excited as you guys were. I loved his character and the way he kind of sold the Ray-Bans and fed into Orange Cassidy, but I can't really give much more on that because I'm not really sure who he is. That's another thing that I need to catch up on. But it was a cool moment, and it obviously was one of those moments that meant a lot to the people who knew who he was. So that makes me happy, so I'm happy for you guys. But moving on to that was the moment a lot of people were waiting on, and that was the reveal of Zack Sabre Jr.'s mystery opponent, which ended up being none other than Claudio Castagnoli. And man, the reaction this dude got, you would have thought he was like CM Punk, who has been away from an injury and making his triumphant return. It was just another level, and I was so happy to see the response that the crowd gave him, which of course was no surprise, right? And I love the way that they started off the match by having, there we go, almost called him Cesaro, but having Claudio attacking Sabre right away and hitting the neutralizer on Sabre. And I, for a split second, was like, no fucking way, they're really gonna end this match right out of the gate. But they didn't, and Claudio ended up hitting a couple running uppercuts to just kind of play into his arsenal more and kind of play into the fans and kind of give us his greatest hits and the things that we love the most. But he did wait in before he actually ended up hitting the spinning swing that he does, and he ends up like swinging his opponent, holding him by the legs around, like, gosh, like at first he was just doing 10, but then he upped it to 20, so it's just insane. So he did drag that out towards the ending of the match itself, but I'm not even going to begin to try to go back and forth in this match. It was just kind of what you would have thought it would have been, a match between Claudio and Zack. It was just technical, hard hitting, and the perfect fit, It was just the perfect fit that everyone was kind of hoping for, and I want to see them run this match back, and it just makes me even more excited to see Zack Sabre face off eventually against Bryan Danielson. So whether that's going to be at Wrestle Kingdom next year, Forbidden Door, whenever it ends up happening, I think we got to get back to that match, and Zack Sabre Jr. just deserves so much credit here too for the way he sold for Claudio throughout, I would say, probably the majority of this match. Almost says Cesaro. Claudio did end up getting the victory here and gaining his momentum going into Blood and Guts this Wednesday. After that, we had the what you want to call it, Fatal 4-Way. The 4-Way match for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. We, of course, have your champion going into the match being Jay White, defending against Hangman Page, Kazuchika Okada, and Adam Cole, baby. And the reaction that Okada got, you would have thought that he was bigger than Punk. No lie. Maybe not, not backtrack, not even taking me, or not even saying maybe. It was definitely not as big as Punk's return originally in Chicago, right? But man, if anything were to rival that return in Chicago, that Okada's entrance and the reaction for his entrance would be up there, because it's just between the reaction and seeing the whole entrance and hearing his music and seeing the presence and seeing him on stage, it's just like I got goosebumps, I'm not even gonna lie. And like, you look at him and it's like, man, like, this dude is a star. You can go into that match not knowing anything about this guy at all, and you just look at him and you can tell he's a star. Like, just everything about him screams star. So this match was very fun. They had a spot where they tried to, or rather the beginning kind of story of the match was Adam Cole and Jay White kind of calling back to their partnership and their friendship and joining forces, and you kind of thought that they were going to take advantage of that throughout the duration of the match, but we did end up getting to a point where Adam Cole ended up turning on Jay White and kind of yelling back at him, saying that you thought I was an idiot, or something to that effect, or you thought I didn't see what was coming, or something to that effect, just pretty much acknowledging the fact that he's not stupid and he knew what Jay White was doing the entire time. But I will get straight to the ending here, because the ending kind of, and even Jim Ross mentioned it on commentary, stating that it was a little anticlimactic. So I don't really know what went wrong where, and especially since we know now that Adam Cole, well, there is a chance that he suffered a concussion, but he did end up leaving on his own accord, which is always a good sign. And if he is concussed or injured, we of course wish him the best. Especially since there was rumors that he was already injured going into the match itself. But there was a point where Okada was going for the Rainmaker, and Jay White ended up hitting the Blade Runner on Okada, pushed him out of the ring, and right before that, Okada was trying to hit the Rainmaker on Adam Cole. Didn't hit it, just kind of threw him to the mat. Adam Cole rolled over to one of the corners of the side, or the ring rather, and was just kind of laying there just on the mat. All of a sudden, Jay White comes over, rolls Adam Cole a little bit, not even all the way to the begin, or to the center of the ring rather, just maybe 2 rolls away from the corners, and pins him 1, 2, 3. No move, no nothing. At one point, right around the 2 mark of the count, you saw Cole probably like contemplating on if he was supposed to kick out or not, and he didn't. He just kind of laid there, and that was it. There was so much confusion and just so much kind of air that was, or just like, I don't know, just like something was just taken out of the moment there. Again, it didn't ruin anything, but it was just kind of flat. And I think Jim Ross said it perfectly, calling it anticlimactic, which sucks. And and you wonder if it was like an injury type of situation or whatever it is, but something obviously went wrong at some point. So look, as long as everyone is okay, and long story short, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So we got to see Okada at Forbidden Door in the United States, so I think that's all we can ask for here. And Jay White, for that matter, too. I will say Jay White probably shined the most, I would say, out of all of the New Japan talent, and just in his specific role, right? Obviously, Okada got the biggest response, no question, but Jay White really played his role the best, I would say. That being said, we are now at the main event, which is Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the AEW Interim World Championship. Guys, this match was just great. This match is everything that you thought it would be between these two, and I think from what I've heard, Tanahashi's knees are pretty much gone at this point, so he is kind of limited in what he can do. And if this match was even 2 years ago, it probably would have been a lot better. And that's scary to think about, because I thought this match was just fucking great. I think that everyone knew that they were going to be going like 100 miles per hour in this match, so it was, the way that they started off was kind of a nice change in pace. And the match obviously did definitely end up picking up as it went on. It didn't end up being as long as I thought it was going to be, though. I'm not sure the exact time, but it definitely wasn't longer than 16, 17, 18 minutes, I would say. If it was, I'd be surprised to say that. But that being said, there was a point towards I think it was even towards the middle-ish part of the match, where Jon Moxley was busted open, and I don't even know what busted him open, to be honest with you guys again. I think the commentary team had referenced that, or had played it off saying that it was from the kicks to the face from Tanahashi. And maybe, in a real fight, obviously that could happen, but nah, nah. It was just none of it made sense. But that being said, the match did conclude with Jon Moxley picking up the victory here, and he ended up hitting the Rough Rider onto what did I call it? The Rough Rider? The Paradigm Shift, rather. What the fuck? I don't know where that came from. Onto Tanahashi for the 1-2-3. That ended up setting up the ending brawl, which I was not here for. We did get the kind of nice moment at the end of the match where they showed mutual respect for each other, but that was right before Daniel Garcia and Jericho ran down to attack both of them. Kingston made his way down, Yuta came down as well, Santana and Ortiz came down, and then of course the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society ended up coming down to kind of ignite the brawl even further. They waited a couple moments, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then Claudio's music hit for the second time. Kind of alarming. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it was much milder of a reaction than it was the first time. And again, they were still expecting him the second time, and if not more the second time than the first time. So I was kind of surprised that it was a little bit more of a milder reaction for Claudio the second time, but not reading much into that at all. But for me personally, I wish they would have given more of a sole focus on the interim championship and Moxley picking up a big victory here and being the first ever two-time AEW champion, whether they officially recognize this as a full run or how it ended up going down in the record books. He still is the first person to hold the heavyweight championship twice now in AEW. So I don't know, just the way they kind of rushed it off just to kind of set up another brawl for Blood and Guts going into Wednesday, which is how we just ended last week's Dynamite with a brawl. Just wasn't a fan for it at all. I think they would have gotten much more out of just having Moxley in the show with Tanahashi. That's just my opinion, but overall, again, the pay-per-view itself, I think was a huge success. It's pretty much, I would say, a given that it's going to happen again unless something catastrophic happens between the two, which I don't see happening. Or if there was some big story blowing up that we didn't hear about, which, again, I highly doubt, especially with social media nowadays. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the pay-per-view itself. I am looking forward to Blood and Guts on Wednesday, and if you still watch WWE, John Cena is supposedly making his return to Raw on Monday night as well, so there's that. I'll be releasing another show some point this week with a prediction show for WWE's Money in the Bank pay-per-view this week, so that will be on the horizon within the next few days. But thank you guys so much for checking out the pod. As always, feel free to follow on Twitter at ASHMANNS and the show's Twitter page at KickAshPodcast_. But take care, guys. I hope you have a fantastic week.